Hi everybody, welcome back to the Leeds lobby. I'm here with myself and my dad, and today we're going to be discussing where we think Leeds can strengthen in January, what players we think we should sign, and the impact of January signings and where we can facilitate that window and where we can make the most of that window.
Before we do get into the nuts of the video and begin looking at what might be for Leeds a very significant period of time in our season, the time where we potentially look at where we're at as a club, take stock and have the opportunity to strengthen. Before we look at that, it's really important that you support the channel as much as possible by hitting that subscribe button. Also liking the videos. It helps us move up the algorithm. By all means, add some comments in the comments box. But let's get into the actual video itself. Yep. So the first question I want to ask you is, January transfer windows. I know in previous seasons, I'm pretty sure either Rads or Kinnear come out and said they don't actually like us as a club making transfer.
Yeah, 'cause it's always fairly rushed, isn't it? It's fairly.
A lot of clubs don't like doing business in January as a transfer window. They prefer to do it within the summer when there's a little bit more time. I think that's also because you tend to find that clubs are very, very rushed in January in terms of getting what they actually need. I think what's different this time is that clubs are going to have a little bit of a rest leading up to the World Cup where they can contribute. Yeah. What transfers within the last sort of 3 or 4 seasons do you think are your standout transfers that have taken place in January that have had a big impact on clubs?
Well, just going on last season, I think that my three probably top January signings would be Kieran Trippier going to Newcastle. Completely sort of started that fight for them to stay up and get the top half of the table. They brought in Kieran Trippier. That was only and Bruno Guimaraes. And Guimaraes I didn't even think of him. Bruno Guimaraes, CDM, but he scores goals, and that's something that we really miss in this Leeds system. A CDM who chips in with goals. I think he's got something like 7 goals for them already. And after moving in January for a CDM, and he's quite similar to Calvin Phillips in winning the ball and then distributing it. Real Madrid are after him to replace Casemiro, absolutely prolific player. And then you've got Kieran Trippier. Obviously, I've already said him, really good. Free kick taker, scored goals for them, but he got injured towards the end of the season, so I think we're really going to see the best of him this season. Dejan Kulusevski to Spurs on loan from Juventus.
We saw the last weekend what he can do.
Yeah, got out on loan from Juventus. They signed him permanently now. Absolutely brilliant winger. He's just slow though. If he works on his pace, then he's going to be an absolute world beater. And then Luis Diaz, enough said. People saying Leeds were offered him, but obviously Liverpool wanted Sinisterra, but then they couldn't get him, so they went to get Diaz. But I think Diaz is probably a better option. Diaz is a really good winger, and he really urged on Liverpool's title fight last season.
Okay.
So where do you think we need to strengthen, and what specific positions do you think are more important than others?
I think it's been very, very well documented and very, very much spoken about that Leeds United probably now need to do the business perhaps we should have done before the start of the season in 2 key positions and possibly a 3rd position that we might not have been so aware of. So first and foremost, we have to sign a striker. Let's be right about it. Rodrigo is now playing in his preferred position, and we are seeing that he is looking like he might end up being a prolific striker. He's heading for... he's actually now, in terms of Premier League, he's scored more top-flight goals, I think, than Bamford has.
He's our top scorer since our promotion.
So that's quite something, bearing in mind the amount that Bamford got in that first season.
He's got the best goal to game... He's got the best goals per minute ratio after Haaland, so he's got a goal every 89 minutes, which is brilliant.
Whereas we were on Just Joe on the midweek fix talking about the fact that again a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the fact that a lot of his goals appeared to be tap-ins. I mean, he stole a goal from Struijk effectively, although I do think he did need to put the ball over the line.
Yeah.
And we were saying that then he scored the 2 goals he scored against Tottenham were very impressive. Were really outstanding goals.
You all darted him, and I got him on the back of this season's home shirt. So I was right and you were wrong.
The other thing is when Jesse Marsch came in, He started scoring goals more or less straight away at the back end of last season. So, again, there is an extent to which do we think that Jesse Marsch is perhaps getting the best out of him? Now, does that mean we don't now need to go on and get a striker?
No.
We saw when he dislocated his shoulder how shallow in depth we are in that particular area. Joffrey is not looking like the same player as he was last season. I don't know whether he's struggling with fitness or confidence, but it's evident to me that we still need to go ahead and sign a striker.
I think Bamford's finished, really. I could see him going to maybe Bournemouth or Southampton.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure certainly if he stays and he does get. I'm not sure what sort of impact he's going to have.
I think if he stays in January, then he goes in the summer. Even if he doesn't want to, he's got to really. But my one note with Rodrigo is that he's still injury prone, and he's shown us towards the end of last season and the start of this season that he is still injury prone, isn't he?
And that's always a concern.
That's where we need a new striker.
Yeah. Also, I think it's very, very well documented that we need left back. I think that Jesse Marsch and sort of the management of the club and also the board were coming out, pretty early within the transfer window to say that we would be making moves in lots and lots of different areas. We would be looking to replace Phillips.
Yeah.
We would be looking to add attacking options to the club. But we never even looked like we were going to sign a left back. Jesse Marsch came out and said we weren't looking at a left back. Orta came out and said we weren't looking at a left back. It was obvious that we weren't looking at a left back. That left a lot of us thinking that he maybe be looking at trying to play Jack Harrison in a wing back role. That was tried in the pre-season but never came about.
Didn't work.
One of the main problems we've got with Firpo is he's just not as good as Strauch, and as such, Strauch, who should be playing centre half, is not able to play centre half because he's covering left back. So for me, definitely a left back, preferably a left back who is a good left back option that can also fill in at centre half.
What's a left back and centre back?
No, a left back that can fill in at centre half.
Okay.
And then we've also got a centre half that can fill in at left back. That for me would be the bare minimum. I'd prefer to sign a left back and a centre half for depth, but ultimately I would take a left back that can also move into the middle to complement Strauch, who is a centre half who can obviously do as a job at left back. That would be the bare minimum for me. Okay. So my question to you is
just quickly, as Joe would say, just to throw a curveball in there. We're not just looking for any centre half. We do need a left-footed centre half.
Yes.
Because I said this on Joe's stream. I sort of briefly brushed over it. That if we're signing a centre half so that we can play Strike at left back, he needs to be left-footed, because if we're moving Strike out and we're playing Cock there and someone else, Cock's right-footed, we can't put Cock on the left. We need a left-footed centre-back. So, I've got to fill in there, and left-footed centre-backs are just like gold dust to find. I'd take Nathan Ake from City. It's probably my preferred option. He's 27, and he was on good form towards the end of last season when City got some injuries. So I think Nathan Ake is my preferred choice. Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth is an option, but we need a left-footed centre-back.
Definitely.
That's why Lissandro Martinez is so highly valued. Why I was talking about Van Dijk in the last video. Why Van Dijk's such a good player. Why Strike is such a highly valued youngster at the club, because left-footed centre-backs are just rare.
Okay, so that being the case, do you actually think we'll go in and buy a centre-half, or do you think we'll just scrape through the window, buy a striker, buy a left back, and that'll be it, job done, chop short? What do you reckon?
If we do get a centre back, then I think it'll be John Egan from Sheffield United.
Are we being linked with him?
Yes, towards the end of last window we were pushing to sign him, but they didn't want to let him go, and so far it's been quite good for them.
But they're again on a championship charge at the minute. They're looking to try and get promoted. So potentially right now, with the way that they're playing, they're probably not going to want to destabilise their back line.
If we do get a centre back, I think it's going to be from the championship.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to look further than the championship, even going into foreign leagues. I think we're going to be like, right, get a centre back, get not an English, but centre back from the English leagues who we know can do it. Just get him in. He doesn't even need to start games. Just needs to be an option off the bench. I think Rob Dickey from QPR is a good option as well. I said him last video, but I thought he played for Preston, so I couldn't find his name. Rob Dickey from QPR we've been linked with. John Egan we've been linked. We've been linked with a few centre backs from the Championship.
If we're going to do that and we're going to bring a centre back in from the Championship, why would we not bring Cresswell back?
Because he's getting experience in the Championship, isn't he? And he's not at the minute a top Championship centre back. You can say what you want about him. He's not. He was dropped from the Millwall side because he was being poor. He was poor in that Millwall side for quite a few match weeks. He's only just gotten back in, and I think we're going to want to leave him there for the rest of the season.
In my opinion, I think Millwall not moving back to a back three again. Is that why Cresswell's not
No, it's
back in
because
the side?
their main centre back that was keeping him out has gotten injured.
Right, okay. So the question is, again, first of all, does it make good sense for us to be buying a centre-back when we can bring Cresswell back? Is Cresswell's development so important that he's getting match time at Millwall, whereas if he came back and came off the bench for Leeds, he wouldn't be getting the same match time? But then again, if the main centre-half gets fit, who's to say that he's actually still going to remain, in that Millwall side? Would we not be better off having him as an option for Leeds off the bench?
We need I don't think we need a young centre-back. I think we need an older centre-back. If you're playing Koch and then another Koch's 26, is not extremely experienced in the Premier League, because his only last season was his first proper season where he was fully fit for the majority of the season. He's still, and again under Marsh, he's still sort of just starting to fit that mould of the Premier League and starting to understand it. He's still young in terms of how long he's played in the Premier League for. I think that if we do go for centre-back, we need an maybe not as old as Liam Cooper, but maybe that sort of 27, 28 age range, which is what we're looking at in Rob Dickie and John Egan, who are older centre-backs who are still good and are sort of in their prime, but they're also going to bring experience to the team. They're going to bring experience. They're going to create stuff. They're not just going to be another one for the 23s.
Okay, so when we look at left back, then what do you think our options are in terms of who we are linked with, who you'd like to see, who you think we might possibly actually get?
Look no further than Jesus Vazquez from Valencia. He's 20 years old. He's considered one of the best talents in La Liga, if not in Europe. He's young left back. He's not getting too much game time for Valencia because he's being kept out by an absolute baller of a guy. I can't remember his name. But he's a young, good left back. Every time he's played, I think he's done really well. He gets bags of goals and assists for the Valencia's B team under 23s. He's absolutely brilliant, and he's only 20. So I would say get him in right now. His release clause is 35 million. So maybe that's a slight setback. But if we can't get him, then what I've said is in the last stream is Rafael Guerrero from Borussia Dortmund, and everyone would love to see him.
And who are we actually linked with?
These two.
These
These two players
that
that
we're
were
linked with.
Rafael Guerrero from Borussia Dortmund. Before I was rudely interrupted, but he's a experienced head. So if we get him in, maybe we can afford to just. If we get him in, maybe we can afford to just bring Cresswell back, because he's 28. Portuguese international. He's just had his Portugal World Cup call up. He's a left wing back, left winger, left mid, left footed. Obviously, this guy. The fact we're being linked with him is just an honour, because he's in the Dortmund first team. He's been brilliant since he went to Dortmund a few seasons ago. He's been there for a while, and I think he's slightly old, so he's not a long-term solution. But for now, if we want to get an absolutely brilliant left back in, who's going to solve all of our problems in defence, that's him. And obviously, yes, he is world class. And with Drame, Drame being linked to Dortmund increasingly by Fabrizio Romano and Phil Hay and journalists like that, then could you see Drame to Dortmund, maybe even on loan, just Drame to Dortmund in some way, shape or form, and Guerrero coming back the other end on a permanent, possibly, maybe 10 million plus Drame, 20 million plus Drame.
Possibly. Okay, so that's interesting. So that is your thoughts on those two positions.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll sign a striker, or do you think the board will think, okay, we're now seeing Leeds aren't struggling for goals? The Tottenham game could bite us in the backside, because we might not have picked up any points, and it might stop him signing a striker. What's your thoughts on that one?
I think last season we went into the January window of we've just beaten Burnley 3-1 without any Rafinha goals, and we've just beat West Ham 3-2, Jack Harrison hat-trick, no Rafinha goals. And it was sort of papered over the cracks, and they were sort of like, well, we're picking up form again, we don't need a striker. This season, if they've not learnt from that, then I'm going to be absolutely ashamed of them, because the fact that we've now gone into Spurs, we have had that prolific striker in Rodrigo. I think the defence was at fault at Spurs, but we've shown, even in glimpses in the Spurs game, that we don't have a prolific striker. Against Wolves in the Cup, even, that we don't have a prolific striker that's young and not injury prone. So Rodrigo's reliable to some extent. Bamford's, if he was a horse, he'd be shot, is what I said in pre-season. A Brian Clough quote. Rodrigo's good, but he's knocking on. We need a young striker. Joffy's not fitting my system. I think he's going to go out on loan. Greenwood's not a 9, he's a 10. I think he's a 10 or an 8. And a free kick specialist, set piece specialist. Nonto, I think, is more of a winger. Personally, every time he's not played up front so far this season, I do think he's a winger or a midfielder. Up front, he sort of solves the up front problems if it comes down to scraping the barrel, which he was. He was a scraping the barrel signing. And, you know, I love him. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be an absolutely brilliant player, and he's quite funny when he runs. And everyone was taking the mick at him because I said that he was only going to Italy because they were calling the youngsters up, which is true. But I still think that even though he is showing form, we do need to go and get a striker. And I think if we do, then it's going to be Joel Pirou from Swansea or Ben Brereton Diaz, because we're not going to bring Tyler Roberts back from loan, are we? It's just not going to happen. we wouldn't want Tyler Roberts back from loan. He's not even getting games for QPR. He's been terrible. He scored 1 goal, 2 goals in, I think, 20 games. Joel Pirou, I think, again, it's going to be a championship thing. I don't think that we're going to go and get I think if we do make business, because January is such a short window, if we do business, the reason we're being linked with mainly English players, and then a couple of Spanish players in certain positions, a couple of players from the Spanish League's Bundesliga, is because January window is so short. If it runs down to the wire, reason on deadline day we couldn't maybe go and get. The reason that Bamba Dieng failed was because he didn't have time. He had to fly in, and because he left it so late to decide whether he wanted to go to Leeds or Nice, which I don't think was right. I think he should have just come Leeds. He agrees the terms.
He ended up moving in the end, did he?
No, he failed his medical.
What's the chances he ends up coming to Leeds now?
No, he wouldn't. Phil Hayes said that we've got no intention of going back for him, which is good. He's a frog, jumps from club to club. I think the reason that fell through is because at 9 o'clock, he couldn't then fly in, have time to fly in, complete his medical sign of the paperwork in 2 hours. He wasn't able to do that. That's why we couldn't go and get a Gakpo, because after a certain point he wouldn't have been able to fly in from the Netherlands to England. You get what I mean? We need to leave time, and that's why January window is so important, but so hard to make signings at the same time because it's such a short window. I think if we do, most players that we get are going to be from the English leagues. Could be wrong. That's my personal opinion of what I think is going to happen. I think it'll be Joel Pirou from Swansea, possibly striker and left winger, because we know Marsh loves the versatile strikers who can play in the wings as well.
Just give me a number 9.
No, Marsh loves the strikers who go out wide.
Just give me a number 9.
Joel Pirou's pretty clinical. He's 23. He scores good. He scores quite a few goals for Swansea. I think he's their top scorer this season. He's not much to say about him. He's pretty average striker, but he's 23 and there's room to improve. Brereton Diaz, we got linked with him a lot under Bielsa, and we would have had to pay 25 million to pry him away from Blackburn, but now he's going to be on a free in the summer, so we're going to be able to rock up at Blackburn and be like, yo, we want Brereton Diaz. I got 50p in a bag of quavers, and then like if they don't say yeah, then we'll take him from you in January anyway. But
there will be other bearing. He's saying he's out of contract.
Yes, there will be other clubs looking at him. But I think that if we can get Victor Orta down there with his spreadsheets and with his videos and with his Rafinha montage videos,
if he's wanting a move or looking like he might be wanting to move and he's out of contract at the end of the season, they may be quite keen to sell him in January.
I would keep an eye on Forest as well. Watching him, he could go back to Forest. I think Forest want him. Forest need a striker, and then the other option, whom I can't actually remember. So, who was it? I was going to say someone, but I forgot him. I think Joel Pirou and Ben Brereton are the strikers we're getting linked with most. Bamba Dieng is
not off the table.
There's more chance of it happening than Gakpo, is all I'm going to say, but I don't think that it will happen. And Josh Sargent is the one I was going to say. Keep an eye on Josh Sargent, because he's another, obviously, the American links. I don't like people saying, what do you think of Anthony Robinson or Josh Sargent? Because you wouldn't be saying that if we didn't have the American link. So why do people all of a sudden think, we should go sign Josh Sargent? Because he's American and you've got an appeal to American players, and I get it. But like, just saying I think we should have Josh Sargent, why? Because he's American. Come on, let's get some proper good quality in.
Is Josh Sargent not probably good quality?
No, I don't think he's a great player personally. Sorry,
Okay,
just don't.
so that about wraps it up. So this is our take on what we think is going to happen in the transfer window. It's a look at some of the players that we're linked to. Again, if you've not already done so, before you sort of leave on your way out, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, put us in the comments box who you think may come in. Do you agree with what Dan said? Do you agree with the ideas of who I think that we need to add to the squad in terms of positions to strengthen? Do you disagree? Do you have any other options?
Do you like my hat?
Do you like his hat? Or not? I suppose it stops him fiddling with his hair, which is also really, really good.
No need for that
So
one.
please hit the like button, and we will see you
Cheers to that, guys.
next
See you
time.
next time.